Climate change and the issue of the climate has been a major topic as well. The Congresswoman brought that up briefly before. So I want to ask, we've been talking about the expenses of the government, what it costs to run government, programs potentially cutting. So in terms of climate, where do you advocate the money come from to do the repair side? Climate change is affecting us right now. Our roads have washed away. We saw that last winter. Our working waterfronts were significantly impacted as well in those storms. But there's also investment that needs to be made to reverse the human impact of climate change. So how do we balance the cost of both of those? And we'll start with Mr. Alcorn.
Yeah, so that's a good point. But let me go back to immigration very quickly, 10 seconds.
We'll keep it to
Part of the problem of the immigration that we're having is because we, the United States, is destabilizing other countries and they're coming here. That has to be said. So that can be.
That's 10 seconds.
Lebanon is going to be next. Watch who comes. On the climate change and infrastructure, whoever said it, our roads are, I can't believe how big our government is, and our roads are still not, I mean, when a new ribbon of pavement goes down, it's great. I'm like, oh yeah, and I drive a motorcycle, so I love it, but you go to some towns, and it's like going over cobblestones. We have to, I mean, that should be, the way the government is so bloated, I would think we would be driving on gold roads, but
is there a solution to funding? How do we fix the problems that we're being impacted from climate change, and how do we prevent further climate change?
How do you prevent further climate change? That goes right over my head. There's no way to prevent further climate change.
Okay, we'll take that answer. Mr. Russell, what are your thoughts on climate change and how we pay for those two buckets, the impact of what's happening and preventing the human effect on climate change?
When it comes to climate change, we know that the United States has done a pretty good job in reducing our carbon dioxide output. It pales in comparison to what China, India, other developed nations produce. They are building 5 coal-fired energy plants in China every week. Why aren't we holding their feet to the fire? I think it's time to stop penalizing Americans for their energy footprint and start penalizing the folks who are really contributing to global warming. Climate change, there's no question that we are having climate change. We see it from season to season. But I don't think providing subsidies for technologies that don't work is the way to go. And I'll use electric vehicles there. We used to provide subsidies for hybrid vehicles early on. I've owned about 10 hybrid vehicles, okay? That technology works. Electric vehicles, if you want an electric vehicle and it satisfies your needs, that's all fine and dandy, but it's not for everyone because it doesn't satisfy everyone's needs, particularly here in the great state of Maine. So I would say stop subsidizing, save some money and along those lines.
Congresswoman, how do we manage that of the cost of the direct impact happening right now from climate change and working toward the future to reduce our impact?
Yeah, it's a huge issue. We've already had 20 storms this year that have cost over $1 billion apiece in the United States. So most of that money comes from FEMA that goes to public infrastructure and the problems that we're having, but that doesn't cover, as we learned in the January storms, it doesn't always cover private businesses, working waterfronts, so it's a huge issue. There's some federal money that's already come into the state to deal with resilience for communities that are trying to think about, how do we plan for moving our sewer facility, or how do we plan to change some of these roads. But what's coming ahead and the cost of insurance are going to grow every year. This is something that's right before our eyes and what's happening in the most recent storm. So we know we have to do something about it. But making these investments up front, whether it's people putting more solar panels on the roof or renewable energy in a variety of ways being used in the community, electric cars, there are all kinds of government supports out there right now for people who want to invest in that and bring down the cost of energy in their own lives, whether it's driving a less expensive car or having their home heating oil costs disappear because they have solar panels and a heat pump. So there's a lot that's already out there that people can take advantage of, and Maine is one of the states that's doing that. So we are investing on all sides, and people can say, keep the government out of it, but this isn't something that's going to naturally happen in the free market. The oil and gas industry and the fossil fuel industry loves where they are today, and they want to stay in the position that they're in, and they're actively lobbying against us doing anything.
We have to wrap there. In the interest of time, we did ask you before if you had a solution. You didn't have one. It was over your head.